Welcome back to Pigskin Perspectives. It is time to do a nice preview episode of all the football that lies ahead of us this week. One of the most exciting times in sports is starting this week, and that is bowl season. Of course, there's multitude of NFL games that you can watch, given that college and high school football are over. The NFL is now invading Saturdays, as they always do in December. So we will get to all that. But like I said, bowl season is getting underway this weekend. One of the most exciting times of the year. You see a lot of random teams playing a lot of random teams and random stadiums that are about a quarter full most of the time. And it's just enjoyable treat for us all to watch. So it gives us that last taste of college football for this season. So how we're going to do this, because bowl season's massive. We're at 43 bowl games now, I think. Whatever falls in between the episodes I'm recording, I will preview in that episode I will record. So for today, we're going to do Saturday through Tuesday, since the next episode would be recorded Tuesday. On Tuesday, I'll recap all those except the Tuesday game, because that will be happening when I'm recording. So that will be recapped on Thursday. You can kind of get it from there. So we'll do a game-by-game breakdown, tell you who the sponsor of this bowl game is, where we're being played, and let's just get into this. So we're going to start on Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So a early kickoff for those in the East, Central, and Mountain and West time zones. Georgia Southern, Ohio, the Bobcats, rocking the Bobcats. They are, well, one of them's traveling up, one of them's traveling down to Conway, South Carolina for the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Conway, home of Coastal Carolina, they'll be playing on that teal turf there in Conway. It's close enough to the Myrtle Beach that it can be called the Myrtle Beach Bowl. But we have a 6-6 Georgia Southern team going up against a 9-3 Ohio team. Georgia Southern, though, the 3.5-point favorite. The over-under is 48.5. I know a lot of people have been saying, like, hey, Ohio's the better team here. Why are they not the favorites? Ohio has a lot of players that have entered the transfer portal, including their quarterback, Curtis Rourke, who today committed to Indiana. So the Maple Missile 2.0 will be in Big Ten football next year. But Ohio has lost a lot of talent that they would have usually had if this was a regular season game, which is why I think Georgia Southern's the favorite here, which is why I think they're actually going to win this game. Even though they're 6-6, haven't had the best of seasons for those Eagles down in Statesboro. I think those opt-outs and transfers for Ohio are going to be too much to conquer. And I think Georgia Southern gets the win here, and I think they'll cover that 3.5. Moving over to New Orleans, I don't even know if this could technically be a rivalry in the making, since they're two different conferences, but they're kind of close proximity-ish. The Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns facing off against the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Jacksonville State, their first year in the FBS, got into a bowl game because not enough bowl teams were eligible. If there were enough bowl teams, they would have been ineligible because of that 2-year transfer window. Same thing that happened with JMU, even though they're in a bowl game also. This should be a really entertaining game. Obviously, Jacksonville State, coached by Rich Rodriguez, in New Orleans with Louisiana Lafayette. It used to be Louisiana Lafayette, but now they've dropped the Lafayette, even though they're still in Lafayette. It's just Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. Jacksonville State's the 2.5-point favorite here. The over-under is 58.5, which means we're probably getting a lot of points in this game. I like Jacksonville State in this one. Their first bowl game ever. I think they're going to be up for it. And, Louisiana hasn't had the greatest of seasons compared to where they have been, which I think is obviously going to play a big role here. And, Jacksonville State, that first bowl game, just everything that went into them actually just getting to the bowl game, I think they get the victory here. Moving on, we have a very, very intriguing bowl matchup here. In the Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl, this game is being played in Orlando. I believe it's in a new stadium for this bowl game. The bowl game's history has seen it played at the Citrus Bowl, or Camping World Stadium, whatever you want to call it, Exploria Stadium, which was home of Orlando City SC. Now I believe they are playing at UCF, I believe. If I remember correctly, they're playing at UCF, the Bounce House, which, fun fact, originally is where this bowl game was supposed to take place when it was originally bid for back in 2013. It didn't get accepted then. It got accepted years later, with the game being at Camping World / the Citrus Bowl. But we have an intriguing matchup on 3:30 on ABC on Saturday. It is Appalachian State going up against the MAC champions, Miami Redhawks. Appalachian State's a 6.5 point favorite. The over-under is 42.5. And Appalachian State made the Sun Belt title mostly because JMU wasn't eligible. I don't really know why App State's the favorite in this one. Miami handled a very, very good Toledo team 2 weeks ago. I almost said last week. It was 2 weeks ago. Feels like last week. I like Miami in this one. I mean, they're riding off that MAC championship. App State coming off a loss. I know there are some people in the portal for App State. Not as many as some other teams, but I like Miami in this one, just given the circumstances. I think they're the better put together team, and I don't really get why this number is at 6.5 for App State. Now, given that, I'm going to be proved completely wrong. App State will win by 40, and we'll all look back on this on Tuesday and laugh. So, yeah. Moving on to the Estella, I think. I honestly don't know what that is. The New Mexico Bowl, played in Albuquerque, is going to be the New Mexico State Aggies going up against the Fresno State Bulldogs. New Mexico State lost in that CUSA championship game. Fresno State had a down year by their Mountain West standards. 5:45 kickoff on ESPN. New Mexico State's a 3.5 point favorite. Over-unders 51.5. Given that this is in New Mexico, I'm assuming a lot of fans are going to be traveling from Las Cruces to Albuquerque to watch their Aggies. I think the Aggies roll in this one. I think they're going to be the better put together team. Diego Palava, I believe, the quarterback for New Mexico State, got injured in that CUSA championship. Didn't play the second half, I believe, which I think cost them the game. If he would have played, they probably win. But given, I believe he's going to be back for this one, I really like New Mexico State in this one. Moving on to the LA Bowl, hosted by Gronk. Goodbye, Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. Hello, LA Bowl, hosted by Gronk. We have the Boise State Broncos, Mountain West champion Boise State Broncos, I should add, facing off against the UCLA Bruins. 7:30 kickoff on ABC from SoFi Stadium. UCLA is a 4.5 point favorite. Over-under is 48.5. And this kind of feels like the Miami game, the Miami App State game to me. I don't know why UCLA is a 4.5 point favorite. They portal and opt-outs are definitely affecting them. I mean, one of their starters this year, Dante Moore, is in the portal. And I Boise State coming off a Mountain West championship in a game against a very good UNLV team that they kind of just dominated start to finish. I think Boise State's just the better put together team here, and I don't see why UCLA is the 4.5 point favorite. So I like Boise in this one. In the battle of two 6-6 teams, we have the Cal Golden Bears facing off against the Texas Tech Red Raiders in the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl live from Shreveport, Louisiana. 9:15 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. This is the last of the Saturday games. Fun fact, Shreveport, former home of the CFL franchise, the Shreveport Pirates, played at Independence Stadium for 2 years, 94 and 95. I believe it was 94 and 95. Had some of the best uniforms in the league at the time. They weren't good, but hey, Shreveport Pirates, great logo. Great logo. But let's get back to the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. I really don't know what to think of this one. I mean, if you go back to my preview, I had Texas Tech winning the Big 12. That very much did not live up to that this year. I mean, it's true. They didn't live up to that. 6-6, barely get into a bowl game. Cal, I think, overachieved. They were better than I figured they would be. They feel like they're kind of getting places now. The move to the ACC, I don't think, helps. It's not great for them. I think there were better options, but I don't think the other options wanted them. So Texas Tech's a 2.5 point favorite. The over-under is 56.5. If I had to pick something here, I don't love this game, but Vegas seems to always be right, which I've gone against twice tonight. So I guess give me Texas Tech minus that 2.5, because I really just don't know what to think of these two teams, especially like what their mindset's going to be playing in Shreveport, Louisiana at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Saturday night. I don't know. Moving on, this bowl game will be on Monday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. It's going to be the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers going up against the Old Dominion Monarchs in the famous Toastery Bowl, live from Charlotte, North Carolina. This has always been the Bahamas Bowl. The Bahamas Bowl had to get moved this year because of renovations to Thomas A. Robinson Stadium. The plan is for the Bahamas Bowl to be back next year. I hope it is, because, I mean, if we lose the Bahamas Bowl, what else do we have? Old Dominion's 2.5 point favorite in this one. Over-under is 54.5. And I'm tending to agree with Vegas on this one. I think the Old Dominion's the better team, even though both teams have had their very ups and very downs this year. I think Old Dominion's the team that's just a tad bit hotter going into this game, and I'm going to pick them based on that. And moving on to Tuesday night, like I said, this one will be happening as I am recording. It's a 9 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. It is UTSA, the Roadrunners, going up against the Marshall Thundering Herd in the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. UTSA is a 12.5 point favorite. Over-unders 52.5. Jeff Traylor, head coach for UTSA. I figured he would have been gone by now. I figured he would have filled somebody's job, and it just didn't happen. So he's obviously still coaching here. Charles Huff, the end of his second year, not as great as people would have hoped, but UTSA, they barely missed out on making that American championship. If they were in the CUSA this year, they would have won it easily. Marshall, not great this year. I don't fully agree on the number here. 12.5's a lot of points in a bowl game. But I do like UTSA because they're just a much better team here. So that's going to be part one, I guess, of bowl previews. We'll obviously continue this as the road goes on, but just as the road goes on, we must continue on to the NFL because the schedule this weekend, I believe bye weeks are done, period. I think everybody's had their bye week, so we are a full slate the rest of the way. And this is a interesting slate we have this weekend. So right now, as I'm recording, the Los Angeles Chargers are in Vegas facing off against the Raiders. As of right now, the Raiders are beating up on the Chargers. It's 21-0. It just ended the first quarter. Wow. The Chargers are very much proving that team is run through Justin Herbert. And you can't really doubt that now because, look at this. Obviously you can't look at this, but I don't know where the Chargers go from here. I think Brandon Staley's done at the end of the year. I don't know who you get next because Justin Herbert, very good quarterback. He's just been let down all around him, it seems. I don't know how you fix that. Do you make major offensive changes? Because, he's a good quarterback, but there are some good pieces around him, but there's some other pieces that are supposed to be good that are just lackadaisical. I don't know if you go big game hunting and try to get Harbaugh or Belichick. I think Belichick's a terrible idea. Or if you go with another coordinator, just like Staley. I don't know what you do if the Chargers do part ways with Staley, which if they don't, I think is a very Chargers move, sticking with a coach that obviously can't get you anywhere. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Chargers handle these last few weeks of the year. Moving on, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the NFL is now invading Saturdays, given that college football's over for the year, regular season-wise. So they have invaded Saturdays, which means we have 3 games on the NFL Network, 3 different time slots. The 1 o'clock game, Minnesota Vikings traveling to Cincinnati to face off against Jake Browning's Bengals. Josh Dobbs, fall from grace. He's now the 3rd-string quarterback in Minnesota, I think. The Nick Mullins era has begun. Jake Browning, other side of the ball, fabulous his first 2 starts since the Joe Burrow injury. And that's the reason why I like the Bengals in this one. They're just a much better put together team. Moving on to 4:30, the Pittsburgh Steelers are traveling to Indianapolis to face off against the Colts. This game is important for both teams, trying to stay alive in that wild card spot. I mentioned on Tuesday talking about 6-pointers as they have in soccer, where if you're going up against a team close to you near the end of the season, it's a 6-pointer because you get your 3 points if you win, but you're also taking away 3 points from your opponent. This is one of those. Both of these teams are right in that playoff hunt, and you want to knock your opponent down a peg, have the upper advantage on them. This is one of those games, and whoever wins this game is going to have that immense advantage, at least for a little while. I like the Colts in this one just because the Steelers, I don't know what to think about them. They're good one day, they're bad the next. I don't know what to think about them, which leads me to pick the Colts. Moving on, the primetime game on Saturday. It's the Denver Broncos traveling to Detroit to face off against the Lions. Lions coming off the loss in Chicago. Denver coming off a win. I believe the Lions, the stat going around, they're 4-0 in their last 4 games coming off of a loss, which leans to the Lions winning this game. But the Lions haven't looked the same since they lost on, or actually even before they lost on Thanksgiving. I'll go back to the week before when they were playing, well, the week before, it was the Sunday before, when they were playing the Bears at home. They barely escaped the Bears in that game. They go on, they lose to Green Bay. on Thanksgiving. They go out, win in New Orleans very unconvincingly. They tried to give that game away, and then they go and lose to the Bears this past week. The Lions need this game. If they lose, it's going to start a free fall. But given what's happening with the Vikings are two of their next 3 games, I think, something like that. So obviously, things can change. But I like the Broncos in this one because I just think the Broncos are the better team right now. They're playing like the better team. The Lions aren't playing like the team they were at the beginning of the year. So give me the Broncos in this one. Moving on, Sunday, big NFL day, of course. Starting it off, 1 p.m. kickoff. It's the Bears and the Browns. Joe Flacco officially signed to a 1-year deal today. That 1-year deal, of course, goes to the end of this season, not 1 year, calendar year, basically. The Bears have looked like a completely different team since Justin Fields came back from injury, and that was the game that they lost to the Lions before Thanksgiving. They've looked like a completely different team. They look like a really good team, honestly. They didn't have that just terrible stretch at the beginning of the year. They might be in the hunt for the playoffs right now. The biggest worry for me with the Browns, obviously injuries stacking up. Not great. The injuries keep stacking up week after week. It seems like another key player is getting injured every week. And even when they're not playing, it seems like a key player is getting injured. I'm worried it's going to catch up to them eventually. I think back to 2020. The Browns were playing the Jets in the Meadowlands. Browns won, they clinched a playoff spot. The Browns on Saturday night, I believe, because the game would have been on Sunday, their whole wide receiver room gets shut down because of COVID, basically. Browns go into that game in the Meadowlands. They lose. No real surprise there. Obviously, Browns made the playoffs, and everything was fine after that. But I'm worried that a similar game like that is impending for the Browns. All these injuries are going to catch up, and they're just going to put out an awful performance. And I feel like it's coming sooner rather than later. It could be this week. It could be next week when they play in Houston. I don't know. I like the Browns in this one because they're the better team even with all the injuries. But with the way the Bears have been playing, I wouldn't be surprised if they pull it off. The Buccaneers are traveling to Lambeau to face off against the Packers. The Packers team coming off a loss to Tommy Cutlets and the New York Giants. They need to bounce back here if they want to keep playoff hopes alive. I think they get that done easily just because the NFC South just is so bad, even though the Buccaneers are in the lead of it right now. I think the Packers get a victory here. Houston Texans are traveling to Tennessee to face off against the Tennessee Titans, who will be wearing Houston Oilers uniforms. That's such a coincidence there. Hey, give me the Texans just because they're the better team. The Titans lucked into a win on Monday night. That was pure luck. Will Levis isn't that good. I like the Texans in this one, although they're coming off a bad loss. So I still like the Texans. We got the Dolphins coming off that loss to the Titans. They're playing host to the New York Jets with a just outstanding performance from Zach Wilson last week. It's not continuing. The Dolphins got to win here if they want to keep control of the division. I think they do. Get a somewhat easy win in this one. The Kansas City Chiefs travel to Foxborough to face off against the Patriots. I mean, the Chiefs haven't looked right, if we're honest. They haven't. The New England Patriots are awful. They did sneak a win last week on the road in Pittsburgh on Thursday Night Football. I don't think it gets done again. I think the Chiefs just kind of control this game from start to finish. I don't really think there's any doubting that one. Oh boy, an NFC South battle. It's the Falcons and the Panthers. Give me the Falcons here just because the Panthers are absolutely awful. Tommy Cutlets and the New York Giants travel to New Orleans to face off against the Saints. Can Tommy DeVito keep up these outstanding performances he's had the past few weeks? This does feel like a game where it kind of just all falls apart and the Saints get a victory here. That's just what it feels like for the Tommy Cutlets feeling. Just the Tommy Cutlets vibe just kind of feels like that's where we're going to end up here with this game because I think the Saints get a victory here. Moving on to the 4:05 kickoffs, the Washington Commanders travel to LA to face off against the Rams. I like the Rams in this one. The Commanders aren't good. We're getting to that point of the year where we got some good teams going up just against bad teams, and the picks just kind of seem easy, and that's one of these. Same with this next game. The 49ers are traveling to Arizona to face off against the Cardinals. Cardinals aren't good either, so I like the 49ers in this one. Now, this is an intriguing game. The Cowboys, coming off that huge win against the Eagles, traveling to Orchard Park to face off against the Bills. It's the only 4:25 game, so the whole nation is getting this game. The Bills are a favorite in this game, though. I believe they said teams that are have 10 wins or above and come into the game as underdogs are 3-17 straight up in the past 5 years. That could be a completely made up numbers, but I saw a stat along the lines of those that the underdog who has the better record in a game like this ends up losing. So given those stats, and even though I don't have the correct numbers, I wish I had them in front of me right now. I just completely forgot to find them again. I like the Bills in this one. Sunday Night Football. The Baltimore Ravens are traveling down to Jacksonville to face off against the Jaguars, a game that could have major implications on the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Jaguars are coming off that I won't say it was a bad loss to Cleveland because they did get back in the game and they just didn't have enough time. They're going up against a Ravens team that got an overtime win last week. They're in control of the AFC right now, but a loss could really throw that into upheaval. I don't know who I like in this game. I'm going to pick Jacksonville just given that it's at home. But I do think the Ravens come out with the victory in this game. But I'm going to make my pick the Jaguars because I don't have a good feeling either way about either side of this game. And then finally, the Monday Night Football game. It is the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. The Eagles haven't looked right. Is this the get-right game, or is this the game where everything falls into disarray? Because if they lose this game and the Cowboys win in Orchard Park, that division very much flips. And I don't think this is the game. I think the Eagles get a bounce back in this game. The Seahawks are good. They're not great. I think the Eagles get a bounce back. At least for now, I still think it might fall apart later in the season. But I like the Eagles in this one. So given that, that is going to be it for this episode of Pigskin Perspectives. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode previewing the beginning of bowl season, this NFL weekend that's ahead. Hopefully it brought you some knowledge and some ideas for you as you're watching football this weekend. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you just stumble across this video, hit like, hit subscribe, tell anybody you know about it. We will be back on Tuesday night recording a recap episode of all of these events, and who knows what else could happen in the football world. Maybe just something major happens that we have to talk about. So until then, that is going to be it for Pigskin Perspectives. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode.